What if the most profound mystery of human existence could be explained by the strangest discovery in modern physics? Every night, as you drift into sleep, your consciousness seems to simply vanish, only to mysteriously return each morning. But what if consciousness doesn't actually disappear at all? What if it operates according to the same bizarre rules that govern the quantum world, where particles can exist in multiple places simultaneously, where information can never truly be destroyed, and where distant objects remain mysteriously connected across vast expanses of space and time? Welcome back to another gentle exploration into the deepest questions that keep philosophers awake at night and physicists scribbling equations on napkins. I'm here to guide you through one of the most fascinating intersections of science and ancient wisdom, where cutting-edge quantum mechanics meets the age-old mystery of what happens to our awareness when our bodies cease to function. Tonight, we're diving into the revolutionary idea that consciousness itself may operate as a quantum phenomenon, and how this could offer a possible scientific framework for understanding reincarnation. Not as wishful thinking or religious doctrine, but as a theoretical consequence proposed within certain interpretations of how information and awareness interact with the fundamental fabric of reality. Before we begin this journey together, let me invite you to settle into a comfortable position. Whether you're listening while walking through a quiet neighborhood, lying in bed as the day winds down, or sitting peacefully in your favorite chair, allow yourself to approach these ideas with both scientific curiosity and open wonder. The concepts we'll explore tonight challenge our most basic assumptions about consciousness, death, and the nature of reality itself. For over a century, scientists have been puzzled by what they call the hard problem of consciousness. Despite mapping every neuron and measuring every electrical impulse in the brain, we still have no satisfactory explanation for how mere matter gives rise to the rich, subjective experience of being you. How does the firing of neurons create the taste of chocolate, the feeling of love, or the sense of existing as a continuous self? Most neuroscientists have assumed that consciousness emerges from classical physics, the same reliable mechanics that govern everything from falling apples to orbiting planets. In this view, the brain operates like an incredibly sophisticated biological computer, with consciousness arising from complex patterns of electrical and chemical signals. But a growing number of researchers are discovering that this classical approach may be fundamentally incomplete. The quantum revolution began in the early 20th century when physicists discovered that the smallest particles of matter don't behave like tiny billiard balls, as we might expect. Instead, they exist in what scientists call superposition, simultaneously occupying multiple states until they're observed. They can become entangled with other particles across vast distances, sharing information instantaneously in ways that Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance. For decades, most scientists assumed that these quantum effects were too delicate to survive in the warm, noisy environment of a living brain. Quantum coherence, they believed, would be destroyed within trillionths of a second by the constant molecular motion and thermal noise of biological systems. But recent discoveries have called this assumption into question. In 2024, researchers at Wellesley College made a discovery that has been described by some scientists as potentially significant for our understanding of consciousness. They were studying how anesthesia affects the brain, particularly focusing on tiny structures called microtubules that exist inside every neuron. These hollow tube-like proteins were previously thought to serve mainly as structural support, like the scaffolding inside a building. But when the researchers gave rats a drug that stabilizes these microtubules before administering anesthesia, something remarkable happened. The onset of unconsciousness was significantly delayed. This suggests that microtubules aren't just passive structural elements, but may play an active role in maintaining conscious awareness. More intriguingly, it has been interpreted by some researchers as experimental support for quantum-based theories of consciousness. The implications are provocative. If consciousness does operate through quantum processes, it suggests that awareness isn't simply the product of neural activity, but may involve phenomena that exist at the deepest level of physical reality. Quantum mechanics has already shown us that information can never be truly destroyed, only transformed. At the quantum level, every interaction leaves an indelible mark on the fabric of space-time itself. As you contemplate this idea, notice how it might shift your understanding of your own consciousness. Rather than seeing your awareness as confined to the few pounds of tissue inside your skull, quantum consciousness theory raises the possibility that your mind might be connected to something far more fundamental and enduring. The theory that consciousness operates through quantum processes isn't new, but it has gained renewed scientific interest in recent years. In the 1990s, Nobel Prize-winning physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff proposed what they called orchestrated objective reduction, or Orch-OR for short. This theory suggests that consciousness could arise from quantum computations occurring within the microtubules inside our neurons. To understand how this works, imagine each microtubule as a tiny biological quantum computer. These structures are made of protein subunits, called tubulins, that can exist in different quantum states. According to Penrose and Hameroff, these tubulins can become quantum entangled with each other, creating coherent patterns of information processing that transcend classical physics. What makes this theory particularly intriguing is how it connects consciousness to the fundamental geometry of space-time itself. Penrose's work in mathematical physics suggests that consciousness might be linked to quantum fluctuations in the very fabric of reality. In this view, your thoughts and experiences aren't just electrical patterns in your brain, but may be intimately connected to the quantum foam that underlies all of existence. Recent research has provided compelling support for quantum processes in biological systems. Scientists have discovered quantum coherence in photosynthesis, where plants use quantum superposition to find the most efficient pathways for energy transfer. They've found quantum effects in bird navigation, where migrating species appear to use quantum entanglement to sense magnetic fields. Most remarkably, researchers have reported evidence consistent with quantum coherence in neural microtubules at body temperature, something previously thought impossible. The liquid crystalline nature of biological systems provides a possible mechanism for maintaining quantum coherence. Water, which makes up most of your body, can form structured layers around proteins that help protect quantum states from environmental interference. Your brain, composed of roughly 80% water, has been proposed by some researchers to function as a sophisticated quantum information processing system, with consciousness emerging from the orchestrated dance of countless quantum interactions. But here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. If consciousness operates through quantum processes, and if quantum information can never be destroyed, then what happens to this information when the brain dies? Classical neuroscience suggests that consciousness simply ceases when neural activity stops. But quantum consciousness theory opens up alternative theoretical possibilities. Consider the principle of quantum information conservation. In quantum mechanics, information is conserved even when systems undergo dramatic transformations. When a black hole evaporates, the information it contained doesn't disappear, but is encoded in the Hawking radiation it emits. When quantum particles interact and change states, the information about their previous states persists in the quantum field. This principle suggests that the quantum information patterns that constitute your consciousness may not simply vanish when the biological systems that house them cease to function. Some interpretations suggest that these patterns could, in principle, reorganize into new conscious systems through quantum processes that operate beyond the constraints of individual brains. Take a moment to breathe deeply and consider the possibility that your individual consciousness might be part of something much larger and more interconnected than you've ever imagined. Quantum field theory, one of the most successful frameworks in modern physics, describes reality as composed of underlying fields that permeate all of space and time. Just as electromagnetic fields give rise to photons and electron fields give rise to electrons, some theoretical models propose that consciousness itself might emerge from a fundamental consciousness field. This isn't mysticism disguised as science. Respected physicists like David Bohm developed mathematical frameworks suggesting that consciousness could be considered a fundamental aspect of the universe, within certain philosophical interpretations similar to mass or electric charge. In Bohm's interpretation, individual minds are like waves on the ocean of universal consciousness, temporarily localized patterns in an infinite field of awareness. The implications of this perspective for understanding reincarnation are conceptually significant. If consciousness exists as a field phenomenon rather than being strictly confined to individual brains, then the patterns that constitute your unique awareness might, in theory, persist in this field even after your physical death. Under certain conditions, these patterns could potentially reorganize and manifest in new biological systems, carrying forward aspects of memory, personality, and experience. Recent advances in quantum field theory have revealed that even empty space isn't truly empty. The quantum vacuum seethes with virtual particles that constantly appear and disappear, creating what physicists call zero-point energy. This quantum foam provides immense information capacity and has been proposed as a possible medium for preserving consciousness-related information between incarnations. The concept of quantum entanglement adds another layer to this picture. Once quantum systems become entangled, they remain connected regardless of the distance separating them. If consciousness operates through quantum entanglement, as some speculative models suggest, then the connections between minds might persist beyond individual lifetimes. These quantum correlations could, in theory, provide a mechanism for continuity across apparent death and rebirth. Neuroscientist Hartmut Neven, who leads Google's Quantum Artificial Intelligence Lab, has proposed that consciousness might emerge from quantum entanglement between different parts of the brain. He suggests that entanglement creates unified conscious experiences by binding together disparate neural processes. If this binding can occur within a single brain, some researchers argue there is no strict theoretical barrier preventing similar principles from being explored across broader systems of consciousness. This perspective aligns with ancient wisdom traditions that describe consciousness as fundamentally interconnected and enduring. Buddhism speaks of the continuity of consciousness through multiple lifetimes. Hindu philosophy describes individual souls as sparks of universal consciousness. Indigenous cultures worldwide have long recognized the interconnected nature of all awareness. Quantum consciousness theory offers a possible scientific lens through which these perennial ideas can be examined. As you reflect on these ideas, consider how they might change your relationship with your own mortality. Rather than seeing death as the absolute end of your existence, quantum consciousness theory invites the possibility that death could be understood as a phase transition, similar to how water transforms into vapor while retaining its essential molecular structure. One of the most compelling areas of research often discussed in relation to consciousness, survival, comes from the systematic study of children who claim to remember previous lives. At the University of Virginia, researchers have investigated over 2,500 such cases, documenting remarkably specific memories that are sometimes found to correspond with historical details when investigated. These cases follow a consistent pattern. Children typically begin speaking about previous lives between the ages of 2 and 3, often providing detailed information about people, places, and events they could not have learned through normal means. They might describe specific family members, unusual occupations, or traumatic deaths with striking detail. In many cases, these accounts have been compared against historical records and interviews with surviving family members of the deceased individuals the children describe. Dr. Jim Tucker, who now leads this research, has found that approximately 70% of these cases involve individuals who died from unnatural causes, such as accidents, violence, or sudden illness. Some researchers have suggested that traumatic or unexpected deaths might imprint more strongly on reported memories, though the underlying mechanism remains unclear. The case of Ryan Hammonds illustrates the specificity and verifiability of these memories. At age 5, Ryan began describing detailed memories of a past life in Hollywood, including having 3 sons, driving a green car, and working in the film industry. Through careful investigation, researchers identified similarities between these memories and the life of Marty Martin, a movie extra and talent agent who died in 1964, decades before Ryan was born. From a quantum consciousness perspective, these cases suggest that specific information patterns could persist in the quantum field and occasionally interface with developing neural systems. Children's brains, still forming their basic neural architecture, might be more susceptible to receiving unusual information patterns than fully developed minds. The timing is significant. Children typically stop reporting these memories around age 6 or 7, precisely when their brains undergo major developmental changes and when their sense of individual identity becomes more firmly established. This suggests that access to non-ordinary memory-like information might require a particular state of neural development and openness. Neuroscientists have discovered that young children's brains operate in different frequency ranges than adult brains, spending more time in theta and delta wave states associated with deep relaxation and heightened receptivity. These brain states may create conditions that support increased openness to novel or internally generated information. The research also reveals intriguing physical correlations. Some children are born with birthmarks or physical abnormalities that correspond to wounds or injuries described in their past life memories. While correlation doesn't prove causation, these physical markers have prompted researchers to explore whether information patterns might influence biological development in ways we're only beginning to understand. This remains a speculative idea, not a proven scientific fact. However, the systematic nature of this research and the specific, verifiable details provided by children make these cases difficult to dismiss as mere fantasy or coincidence. They provide data that continues to challenge purely classical explanations of consciousness and memory. Take a breath and imagine what this could mean for your understanding of your own identity. If consciousness were able to persist and transfer between bodies, then who you are might extend far beyond your current lifetime and physical form. Your deepest fears, greatest loves, and most profound insights could be part of a much larger pattern of awareness that transcends individual existence. The research continues to evolve, with new cases documented each year and increasingly sophisticated methods for verification and analysis. As our understanding of quantum consciousness develops, these childhood memories may offer valuable insights into how awareness navigates between different states of existence. As we've explored tonight, the intersection of quantum physics and consciousness research is revealing possibilities that would have seemed like pure science fiction just a few decades ago. We've seen how consciousness might operate through quantum processes in neural microtubules, how it could exist as part of a universal consciousness field, and how specific memories and personality patterns might persist and transfer between lives. But this is only the beginning of our exploration. The quantum world operates according to principles that challenge our most basic assumptions about reality, time, and identity. To truly understand how consciousness might survive death and manifest in new forms, we need to delve deeper into the strange and beautiful mechanics of quantum information theory. Explore how quantum tunneling has been proposed as a possible mechanism for instantaneous consciousness transfer, and examine the role of quantum measurement in creating the reality we experience. Join me next time as we continue this journey into quantum decoherence explained. How quantum physics turns into reality, where we'll discover how the fuzzy quantum world crystallizes into the solid reality of everyday experience, and what this process may reveal about the nature of consciousness itself. Perhaps no aspect of quantum mechanics is more puzzling or more relevant to our exploration of consciousness than what physicists call the measurement problem. In the quantum world, particles exist in what we call superposition, simultaneously occupying multiple states until they're observed. The famous thought experiment of Schrödinger's cat illustrates this beautifully. A cat in a sealed box exists in a quantum superposition of being both alive and dead until someone opens the box to look. But here's where things become deeply mysterious. What exactly constitutes a measurement? Does it require a conscious observer? Or can any interaction cause the quantum wave function to collapse into a definite state? Some interpretations of quantum mechanics have suggested that consciousness could play a fundamental role in determining reality itself, not just observing it, but potentially participating in its creation. This idea first emerged in the 1920s, when physicists like Max Born and Werner Heisenberg grappled with the implications of their own discoveries. If quantum systems exist in superposition until measured, and if consciousness is somehow involved in the measurement process, then awareness might be more than just a passive observer of reality. It could be an active participant in bringing specific outcomes into existence. Consider how this might apply to the question of reincarnation. If consciousness were to play a role in collapsing quantum possibilities into actual experiences, then perhaps the patterns of awareness that constitute your unique identity could continue to influence reality even after the death of your physical brain. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness might, in theory, navigate between different quantum possibilities, selecting which potential realities are experienced. This remains highly speculative, with no scientific consensus on the role of consciousness in quantum measurement. However, the implications are profound enough to warrant serious consideration. If consciousness does participate in shaping reality at the quantum level within certain interpretations, then death may not necessarily represent the end of this creative process, but rather could be viewed as a transition to a different mode of influence. Recent experiments have begun to test these ideas more rigorously. Researchers are developing protocols to interface human consciousness directly with quantum systems, with the goal of exploring how awareness interacts with quantum processes. While these experiments are still in their infancy, they represent the beginning of empirical investigations into consciousness quantum interactions. As you contemplate these possibilities, notice how they might shift your understanding of your own role in creating your experience. Rather than seeing yourself as a passive recipient of reality, quantum consciousness theory invites the idea that your awareness may be continuously participating in the unfolding of existence itself. One of the most remarkable phenomena in quantum physics is quantum tunneling, where particles can instantaneously appear on the other side of barriers that should be impossible to cross according to classical physics. This isn't science fiction, but a well-established quantum effect that occurs countless times every second in the electronic devices around you. What makes quantum tunneling particularly relevant to consciousness research is its instantaneous nature. When a particle tunnels through a barrier, it doesn't travel through the space between. It simply disappears from one location and reappears in another, with no time elapsed for the journey. This suggests that information can, under specific quantum conditions, be transferred without conventional spatial constraints. Physicist Günther Nimtz has demonstrated quantum tunneling of photons across barriers, showing that the signal traversal time within the barrier is effectively instantaneous, regardless of the barrier's length. This instantaneous information transfer capability has led some researchers to explore mechanisms by which consciousness patterns might theoretically transfer between biological systems without conventional physical constraints. In biological systems, quantum tunneling has been observed in proteins and DNA, suggesting that living organisms already utilize quantum effects for fundamental processes. If consciousness operates through quantum mechanisms, as some theories propose, then quantum tunneling could represent a possible pathway for consciousness-related information to transfer between different biological systems. This is speculative territory, but consider the implications. If consciousness patterns were capable of tunneling between biological systems, it might help explain how specific memories, personality traits, and even skills could appear to transfer from one incarnation to another. The children who remember previous lives may be accessing information patterns that could have propagated through the quantum field to their developing neural systems. The electromagnetic zero-point field provides a hypothetical medium for such transfers. This field, which exists even in the vacuum of space, contains immense information capacity and permeates all of reality. Consciousness patterns have been theorized by some researchers to exist within this field, occasionally interfacing with new biological systems when conditions are favorable. Breathe slowly and imagine your consciousness not as trapped within the confines of your skull, but as part of a vast information field that connects all awareness across space and time. This perspective suggests that individual death might be understood less like the extinguishing of a flame and more like a drop of water returning to the ocean, carrying its unique patterns into the larger flow. Physicist David Bohm made a discovery that has profound implications for understanding consciousness and reincarnation. Through careful experimentation, he observed that electrons stripped from atoms behave as part of a larger, organized whole. This phenomenon, known as Bohm diffusion, suggested to him that reality could operate according to holographic principles. In a hologram, every small piece contains information about the entire image. Cut a holographic photograph in half, and each piece still displays the complete picture, though with a reduced resolution. Bohm proposed that consciousness might operate similarly, with each individual mind containing information about the universal consciousness field. This holographic model suggests that your individual awareness may not be entirely separate from the larger patterns of consciousness that permeate reality. Instead, you could be viewed as a localized manifestation of universal consciousness, containing within your awareness information about other conscious beings and experiences. Some interpretations suggest that this could help explain how reincarnating consciousness might access memories and traits from multiple previous existences. The mathematical foundations of holographic theory come from advanced physics concepts like the holographic principle, which proposes that all information contained within a volume of space can be encoded on its two-dimensional boundary. Applied to consciousness, this suggests that the vast complexity of individual awareness might be encoded in the quantum information patterns that constitute your unique identity. Recent neuroscience research has revealed intriguing parallels with holographic models of brain function. Scientists have discovered that memories aren't stored in specific locations, but are distributed across neural networks in ways that resemble holographic encoding. Damage to one part of the brain doesn't erase specific memories, but reduces the overall resolution of recall, much like cutting a hologram. If consciousness operates holographically, then the death of individual brain cells, or even entire neural networks, might not necessarily destroy the consciousness patterns they help maintain. Instead, these patterns could, in theory, continue to exist in the quantum field, accessible under certain conditions to new developing minds. This perspective offers a theoretical framework for understanding how consciousness might maintain continuity across apparent death and rebirth. The holographic nature of consciousness suggests that individual awareness may contain information beyond the experiences of a single lifetime. As you reflect on this idea, consider how it might change your understanding of memory and identity. Your deepest insights, your capacity for love, your unique way of seeing the world could be part of holographic patterns that extend beyond your current biological existence. Recent advances in consciousness research have revealed something extraordinary about the nature of awareness itself. Rather than being housed solely in the brain, consciousness appears to emerge from recursive patterns that operate across multiple scales simultaneously. Your heartbeat, breathing, gut feelings, and sensory experiences all contribute to the symphony of awareness in ways that suggest consciousness may be fundamentally fractal in nature. Fractal patterns repeat at different scales, creating complex structures from simple recursive rules. A coastline appears jagged whether viewed from space or examined up close, with similar patterns repeating at every level of magnification. Some researchers now propose that consciousness could operate according to similar principles, with awareness emerging from nested patterns of information, processing that span from quantum scales to cosmic dimensions. This fractal perspective suggests that consciousness patterns might replicate across different scales and time periods, offering one possible way to think about continuity of awareness. Just as fractal mathematics can generate infinite complexity from simple rules, consciousness may maintain coherence through recursive organization of its essential patterns. The implications extend beyond individual reincarnation to suggest that consciousness could participate in a vast recursive process that connects body, brain, culture, and cosmos in a single interconnected weave. Your individual awareness may represent one manifestation of patterns that repeat at every scale of existence. From the quantum fluctuations in your neural microtubules to the large-scale structure of the universe itself. This framework helps explore how consciousness might persist or re-express itself across different biological systems. If awareness operates fractally, then the essential patterns that constitute your unique identity could, in theory, reappear in new developing minds, carrying forward core structures of consciousness while adapting to new biological and environmental conditions. Take a moment to breathe deeply and consider yourself as part of this vast fractal pattern of consciousness. Your thoughts, emotions, and experiences may be participating in recursive structures that extend in multiple directions, connecting you to both quantum-scale processes and cosmic phenomena. One of the most mind-bending interpretations of quantum mechanics suggests that every quantum measurement doesn't just select one outcome, but can be interpreted as creating parallel universes where all possible outcomes occur simultaneously. The many worlds interpretation, first proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957, holds that reality may continuously branch into multiple parallel universes, each containing different versions of events and experiences. If consciousness operates through quantum processes, as some researchers suggest, then it could serve as the mechanism by which we experience specific branches of this vast multiverse. Rather than creating parallel selves, consciousness might be understood as navigating between different quantum realities, experiencing one particular thread in the infinite web of possibility. This perspective offers a radically different way of exploring reincarnation. Instead of consciousness transferring linearly from one life to another, it could involve awareness shifting between parallel branches of reality where different versions of existence unfold. The memories children have of previous lives might, under this interpretation, originate not from past incarnations in our timeline, but from alternate versions of reality where those lives were lived. Physicist Hartmut Neven, who leads Google's Quantum Artificial Intelligence Lab, has proposed that consciousness may function as the mechanism by which humans experience specific branches of the quantum multiverse. In this view, every quantum event in your brain could generate branching realities, with consciousness associated with the branch that is experienced. This interpretation suggests that reincarnation might be explored not as consciousness moving through time in a linear fashion, but as awareness navigating between different branches of a multiverse. Each possible life, each potential experience, every choice you might have made could exist simultaneously in parallel realities. Consciousness might be conceptualized as the thread that weaves through this vast tapestry of possibilities. The mathematical foundations of the many worlds interpretation are rigorous and internally consistent, though the interpretation remains controversial among physicists. However, it provides a conceptual framework for exploring how consciousness might access information and experiences that appear to originate from different lives and times. If you enjoy drifting through these explorations without interruption, members get every episode 48 hours early, completely ad-free. You can join them whenever you feel ready. As you contemplate the possibility of infinite parallel selves existing simultaneously, notice how it might affect your understanding of choice and responsibility. Every decision you make could be understood as opening new branches of possibility, with consciousness representing your experience of one particular path through an immense landscape of potential outcomes. The idea that quantum effects could survive in the warm, noisy environment of living systems was long considered impossible by mainstream science. Quantum coherence was thought to be too delicate to persist for more than trillionths of a second in biological conditions. However, recent discoveries have reshaped our understanding of quantum biology, revealing that life has evolved mechanisms capable of sustaining and utilizing quantum effects. In photosynthesis, plants use quantum superposition to explore all possible energy transfer pathways simultaneously, then select the most efficient route. This quantum efficiency allows photosynthesis to operate at remarkably high efficiency, far exceeding any human-designed solar cell. Migrating birds appear to use quantum entanglement in specialized proteins in their eyes to navigate by sensing Earth's magnetic field with extraordinary precision. Most remarkably for our exploration of consciousness, scientists have reported evidence consistent with quantum coherence in neural microtubules at body temperature. These findings challenge the long-held assumption that quantum effects are too fragile for biological systems and suggest that evolution may have discovered ways to protect and utilize quantum processes for complex information processing. The liquid crystalline nature of biological systems provides a plausible explanation for how quantum coherence can persist in living organisms. Water, which comprises roughly 80% of your brain, can form structured layers around proteins that help shield quantum states from environmental interference. Your brain may function, according to some models, as a sophisticated quantum information processing system, with consciousness emerging from protected quantum processes. This quantum biology revolution provides supporting context for quantum theories of consciousness and their implications for understanding reincarnation. If biological systems can maintain quantum coherence at body temperature, then the quantum processes associated with consciousness could potentially persist in some form even after the death of individual neurons. Recent studies have detected quantum-related effects in dying brain tissue, suggesting that quantum coherence may not immediately disappear when neural activity ceases. This observation raises the possibility that consciousness-related quantum information might persist briefly after clinical death, allowing for potential reorganization under certain conditions. The discovery of quantum tunneling in DNA and proteins suggests that biological systems already utilize rapid information transfer processes. These mechanisms have been proposed as possible pathways for consciousness-related information to interact across biological systems in ways that transcend classical physical constraints. Breathe quietly and consider how your own body might be a quantum information processing system, with your awareness emerging from sophisticated quantum computations protected by the liquid crystalline structure of your neural tissue. This perspective suggests that consciousness may be far more resilient and interconnected than classical neuroscience has traditionally imagined. One of the most fundamental principles of quantum mechanics states that information can never be truly destroyed, only transformed. When particles interact and change states, the information about their previous conditions persists in the quantum field. When black holes evaporate through Hawking radiation, the information they once contained doesn't vanish, but is encoded in the radiation they emit. This principle of quantum information conservation has profound implications for understanding consciousness and its potential survival of biological death. If consciousness operates through quantum information processes, as some theories propose, then the information patterns that constitute your unique awareness would be expected to persist in some form, even when the biological systems that support them cease to function. The mathematics of quantum information theory suggests that information associated with conscious processes may not simply vanish when brain activity stops. Instead, it could undergo transformation, potentially reorganizing into new patterns or remaining encoded within quantum systems until conditions allow for its possible re-expression in new biological systems. Some theoretical frameworks propose that consciousness information may persist in what physicists call the electromagnetic zero-point field, the lowest possible energy state of quantum systems. Despite being the ground state of energy, this field contains immense theoretical information capacity and permeates all of space and time. Consciousness patterns have been hypothesized by some researchers to exist within this field, potentially maintaining coherence across apparent death and possibly interfacing with new developing biological systems. The concept of quantum error correction, developed for quantum computing, has been explored as a metaphorical parallel for consciousness preservation. Just as quantum computers use sophisticated error correction codes to protect quantum information from environmental interference, consciousness might, in theory, utilize analogous principles to maintain coherence across the transition of biological death. This perspective suggests that reincarnation could be interpreted not as a supernatural phenomenon, but as a theoretical consequence of information conservation in quantum systems. The unique patterns of awareness that constitute individual consciousness may be expected to persist in some form, according to quantum information principles, with the possibility of reorganizing into new conscious systems under appropriate conditions. Recent research in quantum cosmology has revealed that information conservation operates across cosmic scales, from subatomic particles to the structure of space-time itself. If consciousness participates in or reflects these quantum information processes, then individual awareness might form part of information patterns that extend across vast scales of space and time. As you reflect on this idea, consider how it might transform your understanding of death and continuity. Rather than seeing death as the destruction of consciousness, quantum information theory invites the possibility that it could resemble a phase transition, where awareness transforms while potentially retaining essential information content. The intersection of quantum mechanics and consciousness research is moving beyond pure theoretical speculation into experimental investigation. Scientists are developing increasingly sophisticated methods to test whether consciousness is associated with quantum processes and how these processes might relate to questions of survival and reincarnation. At Google's Quantum Artificial Intelligence Lab, researchers are designing experiments that explore interactions between human cognition and quantum systems to better understand how consciousness may interact with quantum processes. While these experiments are still in early development, they represent the beginning of carefully controlled empirical exploration into consciousness quantum relationships. Other research groups are using advanced brain imaging techniques to look for signatures consistent with quantum effects in living neural tissue. These studies are revealing subtle phenomena in neural microtubules that some researchers interpret as compatible with quantum information processing. The development of quantum sensors capable of detecting single quantum events in biological systems is opening new possibilities for studying consciousness at the quantum level. Researchers are also investigating the quantum properties of anesthesia, building on discoveries that microtubule stabilizing drugs can delay unconsciousness. These experiments aim to clarify how consciousness may correlate with quantum processes and how such processes could be altered under different biological conditions. The study of near-death experiences is also being approached with new quantum perspectives. Advanced monitoring equipment can now detect brain activity that persists briefly after clinical death, suggesting that some consciousness-related processes may continue temporarily beyond the cessation of normal neural function. Researchers are investigating whether these residual processes show features consistent with quantum activity. Perhaps most intriguingly, scientists are beginning to study the neural characteristics of children who report past life memories. Advanced brain imaging during these reports could help determine whether accessing these memories involves neural processes distinct from ordinary memory recall. These studies may eventually contribute data relevant to questions of consciousness continuity. The field of quantum biology continues to reveal mechanisms by which quantum effects can persist in biological systems. Each discovery provides additional context for the possibility that consciousness could involve quantum processes robust enough to persist beyond normal biological conditions and potentially reorganize in new systems. Take a breath and imagine yourself as part of this unfolding scientific revolution. The questions we're exploring tonight may one day be addressed through experiments conducted in laboratories around the world, potentially transforming our understanding of consciousness, death, and the nature of existence itself. The possibility that consciousness operates through quantum processes and might persist beyond biological death raises profound philosophical questions that extend far beyond the scientific investigation of reincarnation. If awareness were to continue beyond individual lifetimes, what would this mean for personal responsibility, ethical behavior, and the meaning of existence itself? Traditional materialist philosophy holds that consciousness is entirely produced by brain activity and ceases permanently at death. This view suggests that individual actions have consequences only within the brief span of a single lifetime, and that moral behavior matters primarily for its effects on others during our limited time alive. Quantum consciousness theory offers an alternative perspective, suggesting that individual awareness could be part of a larger, more enduring pattern of consciousness that transcends individual biological existence. If the information patterns that constitute identity persist beyond death, then choices and actions might carry implications that extend beyond a single lifetime. This perspective resonates with ancient wisdom traditions that emphasize interconnectedness and long-term consequences of action. Buddhist concepts of karma, Hindu notions of soul evolution, and indigenous understandings of ancestral consciousness can be viewed as conceptually aligned with quantum models of consciousness continuity. However, quantum consciousness theory does not simply validate religious or spiritual beliefs. Instead, it suggests that these traditions may reflect intuitive insights into the nature of awareness that science is only beginning to explore empirically. The synthesis of quantum physics and consciousness research could help bridge long-standing gaps between scientific and philosophical perspectives. The implications for personal identity are equally profound. If consciousness operates through quantum processes, that connect individual awareness to broader patterns, then identity may extend beyond memories, personality traits, and life experiences. Deeper aspects of self could reflect quantum information patterns that persist across long spans of time. This does not diminish the importance of present life and choice. Instead, it suggests that current existence may form part of a larger process of consciousness development, with each lifetime contributing experiences to the evolution of awareness. The question of free will also takes on new dimensions in a quantum consciousness framework. If consciousness is involved in quantum measurement processes, as some interpretations suggest, then individual awareness might contribute to how possibilities become realized. Rather than being entirely deterministic, choice could involve elements of genuine novelty within physical law. As you contemplate these implications, notice how they might affect your sense of purpose. If consciousness operates according to quantum principles, then awareness could be participating in the universe's ongoing process of self-understanding, with each conscious moment contributing to a larger pattern. Quantum consciousness research stands at the threshold of potential breakthroughs that could reshape how mind, death, and existence are understood. Emerging technologies are making previously inaccessible experiments feasible, opening new avenues for investigation. Quantum computers are becoming powerful enough to model complex biological systems and simulate hypothetical quantum processes associated with consciousness. These simulations may help explore how information patterns could persist or reorganize beyond biological cessation. Brain-computer interfaces are advancing rapidly, potentially enabling monitoring of subtle physical processes in neural tissue. These technologies could eventually help identify correlations between awareness and quantum-scale activity. Quantum sensors capable of detecting individual quantum events in biological systems are opening unprecedented research possibilities. These tools may one day examine whether quantum coherence persists in dying neural tissue. Artificial intelligence systems trained on consciousness models could assist in analyzing large datasets from reported past life memories, identifying patterns that might suggest non-classical explanations while remaining within scientific rigor. Perhaps most remarkably, advancing quantum technologies might eventually allow indirect probing of persistent quantum information patterns associated with consciousness. If awareness does involve quantum processes beyond the brain, future tools may detect traces of such patterns. The implications of such discoveries would extend beyond academia. Scientific insights into consciousness continuity could influence medicine, psychology, education, and how societies approach death and well-being. However, these remain speculative possibilities rather than established facts. Continued progress requires rigorous experimentation, cautious interpretation, and openness to revision. The questions explored here are among the deepest science can address. Breathe deeply and consider yourself a participant in this unfolding inquiry. The ideas explored tonight represent the frontier of human understanding, and future discoveries may reveal aspects of consciousness barely imaginable today. As we near the end of this exploration into the quantum nature of consciousness and its possible implications for reincarnation, take a moment to reflect on how these ideas might have shifted your perspective on self and cosmos. We've journeyed through discoveries suggesting consciousness may involve quantum processes in neural microtubules, explored how information conservation could allow awareness to persist beyond biological death, and examined how quantum field theory offers one way to conceptualize consciousness as fundamental. We've considered how children's memories might relate to quantum information access, how holographic models could explain distributed awareness, and how the many worlds interpretation provides another lens for examining consciousness and reality. The experimental frontier continues to advance, making once unthinkable tests increasingly possible. Whether or not consciousness survives death remains an open question, but it is no longer confined to philosophy alone. As you continue reflecting, remember that consciousness itself remains science's deepest mystery. The ability to experience wonder, curiosity, and reflection may be the most extraordinary phenomenon of all. The quantum world continues to surprise us, and our understanding of awareness evolves alongside it. Perhaps the greatest adventure is consciousness exploring itself. If these ideas have sparked curiosity about quantum physics and everyday experience, I invite you to join me next time as we explore Quantum Decoherence Explained, how quantum physics turns into reality, where we'll examine how quantum possibilities crystallize into the familiar world we experience. Until then, rest well in the mystery of your own consciousness, the phenomenon that makes all experience possible. As we settle deeper into this exploration, let's turn our attention to discoveries linking physiology and awareness. Your heart beats roughly 100,000 times each day, creating not only circulation, but also an electromagnetic field that extends beyond the body. Each heartbeat generates measurable electromagnetic activity that physicists and biologists continue to study. This isn't merely poetic language. The HeartMath Institute has documented that the heart's electromagnetic signal is stronger in amplitude than the brain's electrical activity and can be detected outside the body using sensitive instruments. What makes this observation relevant is that this field appears correlated with emotional and physiological states. Some interpretations suggest that electromagnetic signatures could persist briefly even after the heart stops beating. While this remains speculative, quantum field theory tells us that electromagnetic information does not simply vanish when a source ceases. Instead, it propagates outward, potentially carrying residual informational patterns. This perspective offers one possible way to interpret cultural experiences of sensing presence after loss. From a quantum consciousness viewpoint, such experiences might reflect sensitivity to lingering informational patterns rather than purely psychological effects. Physicist Amit Goswami has proposed that electromagnetic fields could serve as carriers of what he calls morphic information. This speculative framework suggests that patterns associated with consciousness might leave informational imprints capable of influencing new biological systems. The research remains preliminary and controversial. However, the persistence of electromagnetic fields and their capacity to carry information provides a conceivable physical mechanism for exploring continuity beyond biological death. Breathe slowly and become aware of your own heartbeat. Notice its rhythm and how it subtly interacts with the space around you. This electromagnetic activity is measurable, dynamic, and uniquely patterned. Memory, the core of identity, is also revealing unexpected complexity. When a memory forms, it involves coordinated physical and biochemical processes that may include quantum scale effects. Neuroscientist Stuart Hameroff has proposed that memory formation might involve quantum processes in neural microtubules, creating distributed information patterns rather than localized storage. These ideas remain debated, but they offer one hypothesis for how memory and identity could transcend conventional boundaries. This quantum model of memory helps explain some of the puzzling aspects of consciousness that classical neuroscience struggles with. Why can a single smell instantly transport you to a vivid childhood memory? How can meditation or certain altered states of consciousness sometimes reveal memories that seem to come from nowhere? Quantum consciousness theory raises the possibility that memory may not be entirely confined to individual brains, but could participate in larger information networks. Recent research in quantum biology has revealed that biological systems can maintain quantum coherence for surprisingly long periods, even at body temperature. This discovery challenges the assumption that quantum effects are too delicate for biological memory systems. Some interpretations suggest that quantum memories could be more robust and potentially more transferable than previously imagined. The implications for understanding reincarnation become apparent when we consider that quantum information, according to fundamental physical principles, cannot be destroyed. If memories are encoded as quantum information patterns, then the destruction of the biological brain may not eliminate these patterns, but might instead allow them to disperse into the broader quantum field. This remains a speculative idea, not a proven scientific fact. However, it provides one possible framework for exploring how specific memories and personality traits might occasionally appear in developing minds that have no conventional access to such information. Children who report memories of previous lives could, under this interpretation, be accessing quantum memory patterns that may have interfaced with their developing neural systems. The process by which this might occur remains mysterious. Some researchers propose that quantum memory patterns could exist in what physicists call the zero-point field, a fundamental energy state that permeates all of space. Under certain conditions, developing neural systems might resonate with these patterns, allowing access to memories that originated in different biological systems. Take a moment to reflect on your own memories. Notice how certain recollections seem to come from somewhere beyond your conscious mind, arriving fully formed with emotional tones and sensory details that feel almost like they're being downloaded from an external source. This subjective experience may reflect the complex, non-local nature of memory itself. What makes you uniquely you? This question becomes profoundly complex when viewed through the lens of quantum consciousness theory. Identity appears to emerge not from any single aspect of being, but from resonance patterns that span multiple scales of existence, from quantum fluctuations in neural microtubules to electromagnetic rhythms of the heart and brain. These resonance patterns create what some researchers call a consciousness signature, a unique quantum information structure that distinguishes one awareness from another. Like a musical chord composed of multiple frequencies, this signature emerges from the interaction of countless physical and informational processes operating throughout the biological system. Dr. Mei-Wan Ho, a biophysicist who studied coherence in living systems, described organisms as maintaining coordinated quantum-like states through what she termed quantum jazz. This language was intended as an analogy, describing how biological systems can sustain coherence while allowing creativity and adaptability. The implications for consciousness survival become apparent when we consider that resonance patterns can persist and transfer between different physical systems. In physics, resonance allows energy and information to move between systems that share compatible frequencies. If consciousness were to involve resonance-based information patterns, these patterns might, in theory, persist within quantum fields and occasionally interface with new developing biological systems. This speculative framework has been used to explore why some reincarnation cases involve individuals who share personality traits, interests, or physical characteristics with deceased persons they describe. Rather than random reassignment of consciousness, reincarnation could be conceptualized as resonance between compatible information patterns. Research in this area remains preliminary, with substantial gaps in our understanding of how resonance operates in biological systems. However, the documented existence of coherence and resonance in living organisms provides a basis for continued investigation using rigorous scientific methods. Some interpretations suggest that meditation and contemplative practices may influence consciousness signature patterns, potentially affecting how awareness interfaces with broader information fields. Ancient traditions of preparation for death may reflect intuitive models, rather than scientific mechanisms, for understanding continuity of awareness. As you sit quietly and become aware of subtle bodily rhythms, notice how consciousness appears to arise from the interaction of breath, heartbeat, and awareness itself. This coordinated activity may give rise to resonance patterns that extend beyond immediate sensory experience. Time, that seemingly absolute dimension, becomes remarkably fluid when examined through quantum theory. In quantum physics, events can appear correlated across time. Particles can exist in temporal superposition, and information transfer is not always constrained by classical causality. These features have led some researchers to explore whether consciousness interacts with time in non-classical ways. Physicist John Wheeler's delayed choice experiments demonstrate that quantum outcomes can be influenced by measurements made after events have occurred. This suggests that time may not be strictly linear at fundamental scales. Some interpretations propose that consciousness might be related to how quantum systems resolve these temporal relationships. If consciousness operates through quantum mechanisms, as some hypotheses suggest, then awareness may not be confined to linear time. Instead, it could be modelled within block time, where past, present, and future coexist as aspects of space-time. This perspective has been used to explore how consciousness patterns might access information associated with different temporal regions. Memories reported by children could, under such interpretations, originate from non-linear information structures rather than conventional past timelines. Physicist Henry Stapp has proposed that consciousness may play a role in quantum measurement across time as well as space. In this interpretation, awareness could influence how quantum possibilities resolve without implying control or intent. These ideas remain highly speculative, with no scientific consensus. However, they provide theoretical frameworks for examining how consciousness might transcend classical assumptions about time and biological limitation. Breathe deeply and notice your own experience of time. Memory, anticipation, and deep awareness can make time feel elastic or suspended. These experiences may reflect how consciousness interacts with temporal perception. What happens to consciousness during dying has become a subject of renewed scientific interest. Advanced monitoring now shows that neural and metabolic activity can persist briefly after clinical death, suggesting the transition from life to death is more gradual than once believed. Dr. Jimo Borjigin's research has documented surges of neural activity near death, including increased gamma waves associated with heightened awareness. Some interpretations suggest this activity could coincide with shifts from classical to quantum-dominated processes. Evidence suggests that certain quantum-related processes in neural microtubules may persist briefly after classical neural shutdown. Unlike electrical signaling, these processes could operate under different physical constraints. Near-death experiences have been reported during periods of minimal measurable brain activity. Dr. Eben Alexander's account is one such example, though interpretations of these experiences remain debated within neuroscience. The timing of these experiences is notable. If awareness was solely dependent on classical neural activity, such reports would be difficult to explain. Quantum-based models have been proposed as one possible avenue of investigation. Some researchers suggest that the dying process might reduce biological noise, potentially allowing subtle quantum processes to become more prominent. This remains a hypothesis requiring further study. This area of research is controversial and unresolved. However, observed persistence of organized activity near death provides data worthy of continued investigation. If you enjoy drifting through these explorations uninterrupted, members get every episode 48 hours early, completely ad-free. You can join whenever you feel ready. As you contemplate these ideas, notice how they might reshape your understanding of dying. Rather than an abrupt cessation, death may be explored as a transition between modes of information processing. The study of children's past life memories has developed into a systematic field of investigation. Some researchers use quantum-based models as interpretive tools, not as proof, to explore how information transfer might occur beyond classical explanations. Dr. Jim Tucker's work has documented correlations between children's reports and historical records. These findings raise questions about how such information could be accessed. Quantum consciousness perspectives offer hypothetical mechanisms involving information persistence and resonance without claiming definitive explanation. These reports occur most often in early childhood, when neural systems are still developing. Some interpretations suggest developing brains may be more open to non-standard information integration. Cultural context appears to influence how experiences are interpreted and reported, though cases occur worldwide. This suggests belief may shape expression rather than origin. Emotional intensity, especially surrounding traumatic death, appears correlated with stronger memory reports. Quantum models speculate that intense emotional states could produce more stable information patterns. Advanced imaging studies have found unusual neural signatures during reported memory recall. These findings suggest differences from ordinary memory processes, though conclusions remain tentative. Verification standards have become increasingly rigorous, including blind analysis and independent corroboration. The consistency of patterns across cultures continues to invite inquiry. This field remains controversial. However, systematically verified cases provide data that challenge exclusively classical models of memory. Take a breath and consider how this might alter your understanding of identity. The possibility that memory and experience could persist in non-local forms suggests consciousness may be more interconnected than traditionally assumed. The transition of consciousness between biological systems has been explored as a natural consequence of quantum information interaction, not as a supernatural process. Timing appears crucial. Some researchers suggest windows of neural development may allow integration of non-local information. Dr. Stuart Hameroff has proposed that developing microtubules could function as quantum-sensitive structures during early brain formation. Quantum tunneling has been explored as a possible mechanism for instantaneous information transfer, offering one theoretical path for interface between quantum information and neural systems. Selectivity remains unexplained. Some interpretations invoke resonance compatibility between information patterns and developing brains. Geographical clustering has been examined in terms of environmental electromagnetic conditions, though evidence remains inconclusive. Traditional practices surrounding death may represent symbolic or intuitive models, not validated mechanisms. This remains a highly speculative area with major unanswered questions. However, known quantum effects in biology provide a foundation for further experimental exploration. As you reflect on birth and identity, consider that individuality may emerge from interaction between genetics, environment, and broader informational processes. Perhaps the most profound implication of quantum consciousness research is the suggestion that awareness may participate in an interconnected, web-spanning all existence. This idea arises within certain interpretations of quantum field theory. Quantum field theory describes reality as composed of underlying fields permeating space and time. Just as electromagnetic fields give rise to photons, some interpretations propose that consciousness could be modelled as emerging from fundamental informational fields underlying physical reality. This consciousness field would not be separate from physical reality, but could be understood as the subjective aspect of the same quantum processes that create matter and energy. Individual minds could be likened to waves on an infinite ocean of consciousness, temporarily localized patterns in a field of awareness that may extend throughout the cosmos. The implications for understanding reincarnation in this framework are theoretically significant. Rather than consciousness transferring from one isolated individual to another, reincarnation could involve the reorganization of localized patterns within a universal consciousness field. Death would not necessarily represent the end of individual awareness, but might instead involve the dissolution of temporary boundaries that separate individual consciousness from the larger field. Dr. David Chalmers, a philosopher of mind, has explored how quantum field theories might help address what he calls the combination problem in consciousness research. How does the unity of individual consciousness emerge from the interaction of countless separate neural processes? Some interpretations suggest that this unity may reflect coherence within a broader consciousness field rather than purely localized computation. The mathematical foundations of this perspective draw from advanced concepts in quantum field theory and general relativity. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness could be related to the information processing capacity of space-time itself, with individual awareness described as localized excitations in the information structure of the universe. Recent discoveries in quantum cosmology have revealed that information processing occurs at every scale of reality, from subatomic particles to cosmic structures. If consciousness participates in these information processing systems, then individual awareness may be part of computational processes that span the entire universe. This perspective suggests that the boundaries between individual consciousness are less rigid than they appear. Quantum entanglement effects have been proposed as mechanisms that could create subtle connections between conscious systems, forming what some researchers call the quantum consciousness matrix, a network of awareness that connects minds across space and time. The implications extend beyond individual reincarnation to suggest that consciousness evolution could be viewed as a large-scale process, with individual lifetimes contributing to increasing informational complexity. Each moment of conscious experience may add new information to the broader web of awareness. Breathe slowly and expand your sense of identity beyond the boundaries of your individual self. Consider the possibility that your awareness could be interconnected with other conscious beings across time, past, present, and future. This perspective suggests that individual consciousness and universal consciousness may not be entirely separate phenomena, but different expressions of a broader field of awareness. If consciousness were shown to persist beyond biological death and manifest in new forms through quantum processes, such findings would have profound implications for how we understand ethics, responsibility, and the meaning of individual actions. The choices you make today might influence patterns that extend beyond a single lifetime. Traditional ethical systems have generally assumed that individual consciousness is confined to a single lifetime, with moral consequences limited to effects on others during our brief time alive. However, quantum consciousness theory raises the possibility that individual awareness could persist across multiple manifestations, creating longer-term informational consequences. This perspective aligns with ancient wisdom traditions that emphasize the principle of karma, understood here not as a supernatural force, but as a natural consequence of how information patterns interact within consciousness systems. Every choice you make creates information patterns that become part of your consciousness signature. These patterns may persist within broader informational fields, influencing how awareness could interface with future biological systems. Choices that enhance compassion, wisdom, and connection might create patterns associated with more harmonious future expressions. The implications extend beyond individual ethics to questions of collective responsibility. If consciousness is fundamentally interconnected, then the well-being or suffering of others may be reflected within shared informational environments. Individual healing and growth could contribute to broader patterns of collective awareness. Dr. Amit Goswami has proposed that quantum consciousness theory offers one framework for understanding compassion as emerging from interconnected awareness rather than obligation alone. The question of justice also takes on new dimensions in frameworks where consciousness persistence is explored. Traditional justice systems focus on consequences within individual lifetimes. If awareness were to continue beyond death, justice might be understood as long-term informational consequence rather than punishment. This does not diminish the importance of conventional ethics and justice systems, but suggests that they may operate within larger natural processes extending beyond individual biological existence. Personal responsibility becomes more significant when viewed across extended informational timelines. The implications for how we treat others are profound. If consciousness were to persist and interface with different biological systems, relationships could carry deeper informational significance across time, naturally encouraging compassion and respect. As you consider these ethical implications, notice how they might influence your own choices and relationships. The possibility that consciousness persists and evolves suggests that every interaction contributes to patterns with extended influence. One of the most remarkable aspects of quantum consciousness research is how it appears to echo insights from ancient wisdom traditions that have long described consciousness as interconnected and enduring. This convergence does not confirm traditional beliefs, but suggests conceptual overlap. Buddhist philosophy describes consciousness as part of an ongoing stream of awareness. Quantum consciousness theory has been explored as a potential scientific language for examining such continuity without religious assumptions. Hindu philosophy describes individual consciousness as Atman, a manifestation of Brahman. This perspective bears resemblance to quantum field models that describe localized patterns emerging from universal fields. Indigenous wisdom traditions worldwide describe consciousness as participating in broader webs of awareness. Quantum consciousness theory offers one possible interpretive lens for these views. The Tibetan tradition of conscious dying, described in texts such as the Bardo Thodol, outlines practices for navigating transitions of awareness. From a quantum perspective, these practices may reflect psychological preparation rather than empirically verified mechanisms. Ancient Greek philosophers, such as Plato, described the soul as capable of recollection across lives. These ideas parallel modern discussions of non-local information access without constituting scientific proof. The convergence between quantum science and ancient wisdom does not imply uncritical acceptance. Instead, it invites careful dialogue, where empirical testing remains essential. Ancient traditions provide hypotheses, science provides methods for evaluation. Together, they may support a more comprehensive understanding of consciousness. The implications extend beyond theory to practical areas such as grief, meditation, and well-being. If certain ancient practices are indirectly supported, they could inform modern approaches to mental health and resilience. Take a moment to reflect on how this convergence might influence your own understanding of consciousness. As our exploration draws towards its close, consider how the possibility of consciousness, survival, and transfer could reshape our understanding of existence and meaning. If consciousness were demonstrated to persist beyond biological death, it would represent one of the most significant shifts in human understanding since the recognition that Earth orbits the Sun. Such a discovery would influence relationships, education, medicine, and concepts of responsibility. Grief might be reframed as transition rather than erasure. Without diminishing emotional reality, medicine could expand its understanding of end-of-life processes. Education might explore learning as interaction with deeper informational structures. Relationships could be understood as forming enduring informational connections. Perhaps most significantly, the intuition that existence has meaning beyond biology may reflect genuine features of reality. As we reach the gentle conclusion of this exploration into the quantum nature of consciousness and its potential implications for reincarnation, we stand at the threshold of discoveries that could fundamentally transform human understanding. Experimental techniques continue to advance. Within coming decades, evidence may clarify whether consciousness operates through quantum processes in neural systems. Quantum computers are becoming capable of modeling biological complexity, potentially revealing how awareness could emerge from quantum information processing. Brain-computer interfaces may eventually detect quantum signatures in living neural tissue, revealing how awareness interfaces with physical processes. The study of children's past life memories continues to challenge conventional assumptions. Future tools might reveal distinct neural mechanisms involved in such reports. Advancing quantum technologies could one day allow interaction with persistent informational patterns. Though this remains speculative, these possibilities are not established facts. Continued rigorous investigation remains essential. However, the convergence of physics, neuroscience, and consciousness research suggests meaningful questions, not fantasy. As you contemplate these ideas, consider yourself part of this unfolding scientific inquiry. The universe continues to reveal deeper layers of interconnectedness. Perhaps consciousness represents the universe reflecting upon itself. Whether consciousness survives death or not, exploring these questions deepens our understanding of what it means to be aware. Take a final breath and rest in the mystery of consciousness itself. Your awareness, finite or enduring, remains one of the most remarkable phenomena in existence. Sleep well, dream deeply, and let curiosity remain gentle. Imagine standing before a mirror that reflects not your physical form, but the quantum signature of your consciousness itself. Such a mirror would reveal not the boundaries of skin, but the subtle, informational field of awareness, the coherence patterns that shape thought, and the structures that persist through sleep and dreaming. This is not fantasy, but a developing possibility as quantum consciousness research advances toward practical investigation. Scientists are developing increasingly sophisticated methods to detect and map quantum signatures associated with awareness, potentially revealing how consciousness operates beyond classical neuroscience. Dr. Christoph Koch has proposed that future brain scanning technologies might one day reveal neural correlates of consciousness at quantum scales, allowing observation of awareness as it emerges in real time. The implications extend beyond academic curiosity. If consciousness operates through quantum mechanisms, understanding these processes could transform mental health, cognitive science, and contemplative practice. Some interpretations suggest that meditation and contemplation may influence coherence in neural systems, potentially shaping clarity, compassion, and insight. Recent research has begun to explore how different states of consciousness correlate with quantum signatures in brain tissue. Advanced meditation practitioners show unique patterns of gamma wave activity that might reflect enhanced quantum coherence in neural microtubules. These findings remain preliminary, but they suggest that contemplative practices may influence the quantum foundations of awareness. The possibility of mapping individual consciousness signatures raises profound questions about the nature of personal identity and its theoretical persistence beyond biological death. If your unique awareness pattern can be detected and characterized, what does this tell us about the information content of consciousness and its hypothesized survival in quantum systems? Some researchers speculate that consciousness signatures might persist in the quantum field as stable information patterns, similar to how quantum computers maintain coherent information states. These patterns might theoretically maintain their organization even when separated from their original biological substrates, offering one possible way to think about how specific memories and personality traits could appear to transfer between different conscious systems. As you contemplate the possibility of your own consciousness signature, notice how this idea might shift your understanding of what makes you uniquely you. Rather than seeing your identity as confined to your memories and personality, quantum consciousness theory suggests that your deepest self might be encoded in information patterns that transcend the particular arrangement of atoms in your brain. Deep within your own consciousness might lie traces of information patterns that originated in experiences far beyond your current lifetime. This highly speculative possibility emerges from quantum consciousness theories that suggest individual awareness might occasionally access information stored in the broader consciousness field, revealing glimpses of experiences that feel both foreign and mysteriously familiar. Have you ever encountered a place that felt inexplicably familiar despite never having visited it before? Or met someone who seemed like an old friend from the moment you first spoke? Many people report such experiences, which conventional psychology attributes to pattern recognition or wishful thinking. However, quantum consciousness theory offers a different interpretation. These experiences could be interpreted as reflecting access to quantum information patterns that may have originated in different biological systems. The research remains highly speculative, with no scientific consensus on these interpretations. However, the documented existence of quantum coherence in neural systems provides a potential mechanism for understanding how consciousness might occasionally interface with information that transcends individual biological boundaries. Dr. Ian Stevenson's decades of research into spontaneous reports, often described as past life memories, in children revealed patterns that suggest the possibility of systematic information transfer between different minds. The specificity and verifiability of these memories cannot be easily explained by conventional models of consciousness that assume awareness is entirely produced by individual brains. Some interpretations suggest that developing neural systems might be particularly susceptible to quantum information interfaces. The rapid neural growth and high degree of plasticity in children's brains might create windows of opportunity for accessing quantum consciousness patterns that are proposed to have originated in different biological systems. The process by which this might occur remains mysterious. Quantum tunneling effects have been proposed as one hypothetical way information could transfer instantaneously between different regions of the consciousness field, occasionally interfacing with the receptive neural systems. The selectivity of this process might depend on resonance effects that create compatibility between specific consciousness patterns and developing minds. Advanced brain imaging techniques are beginning to reveal unique neural signatures associated with accessing unusual memories. Some children who report experiences interpreted as past life memories show distinct gamma wave patterns during recall that differ from normal memory retrieval, suggesting these memories might be accessed through mechanisms that differ from ordinary recall. The implications for understanding personal identity become profound when we consider that aspects of who you are might reflect information patterns that have existed for far longer than your current biological system. This doesn't diminish the importance of your present life and choices, but suggests that individual consciousness might be part of much larger information structures that span vast periods of time. Take a moment to reflect on your own deepest intuitions and unexplained knowledge. Notice any skills, preferences, or insights that seem to come from somewhere beyond your conscious learning. While these experiences might have conventional explanations, quantum consciousness theory suggests they could also reflect access to information patterns that transcend individual biological boundaries. Perhaps one of the most remarkable implications of quantum consciousness research is the suggestion that individual awareness might participate in collective information processing systems that span multiple minds simultaneously. This isn't mystical speculation, but emerges naturally from quantum field theories that describe consciousness as emerging from underlying fields that connect all aware beings. Quantum entanglement, once established between particles, persists regardless of the distance separating them. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness might operate through analogous quantum connections, creating subtle informational links between different minds that allow for the emergence of collective intelligence and shared awareness. The research in this area remains highly preliminary, but some fascinating correlations have been documented. Studies of meditation groups have revealed synchronized brainwave patterns that emerge spontaneously when practitioners meditate together, suggesting that individual consciousness might naturally align into collective states under certain conditions. Dr. Dean Radin's research at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has documented subtle correlations between the consciousness states of individuals separated by large distances, particularly during periods of focused intention or meditation. While these effects are small and controversial, they suggest the possibility of quantum information exchange between different minds. The Global Consciousness Project, an international collaboration of researchers, has documented apparent correlations between global events and random number generators located around the world. The interpretation of these findings remains highly controversial, but some researchers suggest they might reflect the influence of large-scale human attention on quantum systems. If consciousness truly operates through quantum field effects, then the boundaries between individual minds might be less absolute than they appear. Quantum coherence could theoretically extend across multiple neural systems, creating temporary states of collective awareness where individual consciousness participates in larger information processing networks. This perspective offers potential scientific frameworks for understanding phenomena that many cultures have recognized throughout history. The wisdom of crowds, collective intuition, and the mysterious way that insights and innovations often appear simultaneously in different individuals who have no direct contact with each other. The implications for understanding how consciousness might persist and transfer become apparent when we consider that individual awareness might never be entirely separate from collective consciousness patterns. Death might not represent the isolation of consciousness, but rather its conceptual reintegration into larger information networks that span multiple minds and extended time frames. Breathe slowly and become aware of the subtle ways your own consciousness might be connected to others around you. Notice how your thoughts and emotions can be influenced by the moods and energy of people near you, and consider how these effects might reflect quantum information exchange between different neural systems. Consciousness, viewed through the lens of quantum theory, appears not as a static phenomenon, but as an evolving information system that grows in complexity and coherence over time. Each moment of awareness contributes new patterns to the quantum consciousness field, potentially influencing the development of awareness in ways that span individual lifetimes and biological systems. This evolutionary perspective suggests that what some traditions describe as reincarnation, if it occurs, might not be a simple transfer of consciousness from one body to another, but rather participation in a vast developmental process where individual awareness contributes to the growing complexity of universal consciousness itself. Each lifetime might represent an opportunity for consciousness to explore new possibilities, develop new capacities, and contribute unique insights to the collective evolution of awareness. Dr. Ervin Laszlo, a systems theorist who has explored consciousness from quantum perspectives, proposes that individual minds participate in what he calls the akashic field, a quantum information structure that preserves and integrates all conscious experiences. In this framework, personal growth and spiritual development contribute to the evolution of consciousness at cosmic scales. The mathematical frameworks of complexity theory and information science reveal how simple systems can evolve into increasingly sophisticated patterns through iterative processes. If consciousness operates according to similar principles, then the experiences and insights you develop during your lifetime might contribute to quantum information patterns that persist and influence future manifestations of awareness. This perspective aligns with contemplative traditions that emphasize consciousness development as a gradual process, sometimes described as unfolding across multiple lifetimes. The cultivation of wisdom, compassion, and understanding might create quantum information patterns that enhance the capacity for these qualities in future conscious systems. The research suggests that consciousness evolution might occur through quantum learning processes that operate across different scales of time and biological organization. Individual neural systems might contribute to collective information patterns that influence the development of consciousness in ways that transcend individual biological boundaries. Some interpretations suggest that traumatic experiences might create quantum information patterns that require extended integration over time, while positive experiences and spiritual insights might contribute to patterns that enhance the evolution of consciousness toward greater harmony and understanding. The implications for personal responsibility become profound when viewed from this evolutionary perspective. Every choice you make, every moment of compassion or wisdom you cultivate, every insight you develop, might contribute to quantum patterns that influence the development of consciousness for vast periods of time. This remains a speculative framework, not established scientific fact. However, it provides a context for understanding how individual consciousness might be part of much larger developmental processes that give profound meaning to personal growth and spiritual cultivation. As you reflect on your own growth and development, consider how your experiences might be contributing to larger patterns of consciousness evolution. The challenges you face, the wisdom you develop, and the love you cultivate might be part of an ancient process by which awareness learns to know itself more completely. At the boundary between life and death lies a quantum threshold that might represent one of the most significant transitions consciousness can undergo. Recent research into the dying process has revealed that this transition is far more gradual and complex than previously understood, with quantum processes potentially persisting long after classical biological functions have ceased. Advanced monitoring equipment can now detect subtle electrical activity in brain tissue for hours after clinical death, suggesting that the information processing systems associated with consciousness might continue operating through quantum mechanisms even when conventional neural activity has stopped. These findings challenge our basic assumptions about the relationship between consciousness and biological function. Dr. Sam Parnia's research into cardiac arrest survival has documented detailed conscious experiences that occur during periods when brain monitoring shows no conventional neural activity. These reports suggest that consciousness might access information and maintain awareness through quantum processes that operate independently of classical brain function. The transition process appears to involve a gradual shift from classical biological information processing to quantum field-based consciousness systems. As thermal noise and biological interference diminish during the dying process, quantum coherence in neural microtubules might actually become more prominent, potentially allowing consciousness to access information and experiences that are normally filtered out by the constraints of biological existence. Some interpretations suggest that this quantum threshold represents a theoretical choice point where consciousness patterns determine their future trajectory. The coherence and organization of quantum information patterns developed during lifetime might influence whether awareness maintains sufficient structure to interface with new biological systems or dissipates into the broader quantum field. Traditional cultures worldwide have developed sophisticated practices for navigating this transition, often emphasizing the importance of maintaining clear awareness and positive intentions during the dying process. From a quantum consciousness perspective, These practices might represent culturally evolved methods for optimizing consciousness patterns for symbolic continuity or reinterpretation. The Tibetan tradition describes intermediate states between death and rebirth, where consciousness experiences various phenomena before selecting appropriate conditions for subsequent existence. Quantum consciousness theory provides potential mechanisms for understanding these descriptions as subjective experiences that occur as awareness transitions between different modes of existence. The timing of this transition process might be crucial for consciousness continuity. Research suggests that maintaining quantum coherence requires specific conditions that might be disrupted if the dying process is too sudden or traumatic. This could help explain why some reported reincarnation cases involve individuals who died from unexpected causes, as their quantum consciousness patterns might have maintained greater coherence through the transition. The role of emotional and spiritual preparation also appears significant. Individuals who have cultivated practices of meditation, compassion and wisdom might develop quantum consciousness patterns that are more resilient and better organized for navigating the transition between biological systems. Take a deep breath and consider how this understanding might influence your own relationship with mortality. Rather than seeing death as an absolute ending, quantum consciousness theory suggests it might be a threshold that consciousness crosses as it transitions from one mode of existence to another. Every life leaves traces in the quantum consciousness field that might persist long after biological death, creating what could be understood as a quantum legacy that influences the development of awareness across vast scales of space and time. This perspective suggests that individual existence has significance far beyond the brief span of biological life, with each moment of conscious experience contributing to patterns that might shape consciousness for generations to come. The mathematical frameworks of information theory reveal that conscious experiences create quantum information patterns that become permanently encoded in the structure of the consciousness field. Unlike classical information, which can be lost or destroyed, quantum information persists according to fundamental conservation principles that operate throughout the universe. These quantum legacy patterns might influence the development of consciousness in ways both subtle and profound. The wisdom insights, compassionate actions, and creative expressions you develop during your lifetime might create quantum templates that facilitate the emergence of similar qualities in future conscious systems. In this sense, consciousness evolution might be cumulative, with each generation building upon the quantum achievements of previous awareness patterns. Some interpretations suggest that genetic inheritance represents only one layer of information transfer between generations, with quantum consciousness patterns providing additional channels for transmitting qualities like wisdom, creativity, and spiritual insight. This could help explain how certain capabilities and tendencies appear to run in families in ways that cannot be fully explained by genetic or environmental factors alone. The research into epigenetics has revealed that environmental influences can affect gene expression in ways that persist across multiple generations. Some theories propose that consciousness experiences might create similar transgenerational effects through quantum information channels, with traumatic experiences potentially creating patterns that require healing across lifetimes. While positive experiences contribute to patterns that enhance future development, cultural and artistic achievements might also create quantum legacy patterns that persist in the consciousness field. The insights of great philosophers, the compassion of spiritual teachers, and the creativity of artists might contribute to quantum information structures that continue to inspire and influence awareness long after their biological origins have passed. This perspective provides a scientific framework for understanding how individual actions can have consequences that extend far beyond their immediate effects. Every choice you make might contribute to quantum patterns that influence the development of consciousness across scales of time that dwarf individual lifetimes. The implications for understanding personal purpose become profound when viewed from this quantum legacy perspective. Rather than seeing individual existence as briefly significant within cosmic scales, quantum consciousness theory suggests that each moment of awareness contributes to enduring patterns that shape the evolution of consciousness throughout the universe. This doesn't require belief in literal reincarnation to be meaningful. Even if consciousness doesn't survive in individual form, the quantum information patterns created by conscious experiences might persist and influence the development of awareness in ways that give profound significance to individual existence and choice. As you contemplate your own potential quantum legacy, consider how the qualities you cultivate and the choices you make might contribute to patterns that persist long after your biological existence has ended. The love, wisdom, and creativity you develop might become part of enduring information structures that continue to influence consciousness across vast scales of time. Perhaps the most mind-bending implication of quantum consciousness theory is the possibility that awareness might exist in infinite recursive layers, with each level of consciousness participating in larger awareness systems that extend across scales from quantum to cosmic. This perspective suggests that individual consciousness might be simultaneously finite and infinite, temporary and eternal, local and universal. The mathematical concept of recursion describes systems that contain copies of themselves at different scales, creating patterns that repeat infinitely inward and outward. Some interpretations of quantum consciousness theory propose that awareness operates according to similar principles, with individual minds containing patterns that reflect universal consciousness, while universal consciousness contains all possible individual awareness patterns. This recursive structure might explain how consciousness can feel both intimately personal and mysteriously connected to something much larger. Your individual awareness might be a localized pattern within universal consciousness, while universal consciousness might exist as an emergent property of the infinite interaction between all individual awareness patterns. Physicist David Bohm explored similar ideas in his concept of the implicate order, a hidden reality where all phenomena are interconnected through recursive relationships that transcend apparent separateness. In Bohm's framework, individual consciousness and universal consciousness are different aspects of a single, infinitely complex awareness system. Recent research in fractal mathematics has revealed that recursive patterns can generate infinite complexity from simple rules. If consciousness operates according to fractal principles, then the patterns that constitute your individual awareness might repeat at every scale of existence, connecting your personal experience to cosmic consciousness through infinite recursive relationships. This perspective offers a framework for understanding how reincarnation might be understood not as simple transfer between individual bodies, but participation in recursive consciousness patterns that exist simultaneously across multiple scales of time and space. Death and birth might represent transitions between different levels of recursive awareness, rather than absolute beginning and ending of consciousness itself. The implications extend beyond individual reincarnation to suggest that consciousness might be the fundamental recursive principle that organizes reality itself. Every quantum interaction, every biological process, every thought and emotion might participate in vast recursive patterns that connect the smallest scales of existence to the largest structures in the universe. Some interpretations suggest that meditation and contemplative practices might facilitate awareness of these recursive patterns, allowing individual consciousness to recognize its participation in larger awareness systems. The sense of unity and interconnection reported in mystical experiences might reflect subjective perceptions of the recursive structure of consciousness itself. This recursive perspective also provides a framework for understanding how individual actions can have far-reaching consequences. Every choice you make might create ripple effects that propagate through recursive consciousness patterns, influencing awareness at scales both infinitely small and infinitely large. The mathematical frameworks describing recursive systems reveal that they can maintain coherent organization across infinite scales while allowing for endless creativity and novelty. If consciousness operates recursively, then individual awareness might participate in enduring patterns while still maintaining the capacity for unique experience and genuine choice. Breathe slowly and expand your awareness to include the possibility that your consciousness exists simultaneously at many different scales. The thoughts you're thinking right now might be participating in awareness patterns that extend from quantum fluctuations in your neural microtubules to large-scale consciousness processes that span the entire universe. As our exploration draws toward its contemplative close, we find ourselves witnessing what could represent the beginning of the most profound revolution in human understanding since we first recognized that Earth orbits the Sun rather than standing at the center of creation. The possibility that consciousness operates through quantum processes and persists beyond biological death represents a fundamental shift in how we understand ourselves, our relationships, and our place in the cosmic order. This revolution isn't happening through dramatic proclamations or sudden revelations, but through the patient accumulation of evidence, the careful testing of hypotheses, and the gradual recognition that consciousness might be far more fundamental, interconnected, and enduring than our everyday experience suggests. The research we've explored tonight remains at the cutting edge of scientific investigation, with much still unknown and many questions yet to be answered. However, the convergence of quantum physics discoveries, consciousness research, and systematic documentation of anomalous phenomena suggests that we might be approaching answers to questions that have puzzled humanity since we first became aware of our own awareness. Whether or not consciousness ultimately survives death and reincarnates in new biological forms, the investigation of these possibilities is expanding our understanding of what it means to be conscious, aware, and alive. The quantum world has already revealed that reality is far stranger, more interconnected, and more mysterious than our everyday experience suggests. Perhaps consciousness itself represents the universe's way of knowing itself, with individual awareness serving as localized explorations of what it means to exist. Each moment of conscious experience might contribute to the cosmos's growing understanding of its own nature, making every thought, every feeling, every moment of awareness significant beyond our imagining. The practical implications of quantum consciousness research extend far beyond academic curiosity. If consciousness truly operates through quantum processes, this understanding might revolutionize approaches to mental health, education, meditation, and the cultivation of wisdom. Ancient contemplative practices might be validated and refined through scientific understanding of their effects on quantum consciousness systems. The possibility of consciousness survival also provides theoretical frameworks for understanding experiences that many people report, but that conventional neuroscience cannot fully explain. The sense of connection with departed loved ones, the feeling that individual existence has significance beyond biological life, and the intuition that awareness is connected to something larger and more enduring than individual brains. These remain possibilities rather than established facts. The research requires continued rigorous investigation, careful experimental design, and open-minded evaluation of evidence. However, the implications are profound enough that they deserve serious scientific attention and thoughtful consideration by anyone interested in understanding the nature of consciousness and existence. As you reflect on the ideas we've explored tonight, consider how they might influence your own understanding of consciousness, relationships, and the meaning of existence. Whether or not awareness continues beyond death, the investigation of this possibility reveals the remarkable nature of consciousness itself and its central role in making experience possible. The quantum revolution in consciousness research is still unfolding, with new discoveries emerging regularly that challenge our assumptions about the nature of awareness and its relationship to physical reality. We stand at the threshold of potentially transformative understanding that could reshape human civilization as profoundly as any discovery in history. As we reach the gentle conclusion of our journey into the quantum mysteries of consciousness and reincarnation, we arrive at a place that feels both like an ending and a beginning. We've travelled through landscapes of possibility where awareness dances with quantum fields, where information may persist beyond biological death, and where individual consciousness might participate in cosmic patterns that span vast scales of space and time. The questions we've explored tonight touch the deepest mysteries of existence itself. What is consciousness? How does awareness arise from matter? Can the patterns that constitute individual identity persist beyond the death of the brain? These aren't just academic puzzles, but investigations that reach into the very heart of what it means to be human, to be aware, to exist as a conscious being in an apparently conscious universe. The research reveals that we stand at an extraordinary moment in human understanding. For the first time in history, we have scientific tools sophisticated enough to investigate consciousness at the quantum level, to detect the subtle processes that might underlie awareness itself, and to test hypotheses about the survival of consciousness that were once purely philosophical speculation. Whether the theories we've explored tonight prove accurate or require revision, the investigation itself represents a profound achievement. Consciousness studying itself, awareness investigating its own nature, the universe becoming conscious of its own consciousness. These remain among the most remarkable phenomena we can contemplate. The implications extend far beyond questions of personal survival. If consciousness truly operates through quantum processes, if awareness is possibly fundamental to the structure of reality itself, then every moment of conscious experience participates in the cosmic adventure of existence becoming aware of itself. Your consciousness, sitting quietly and contemplating these mysteries, represents something so extraordinary that the entire universe has spent nearly 14 billion years bringing it into being. From the first quantum fluctuations after the Big Bang to the formation of stars and planets, from the emergence of life to the evolution of complex brains capable of quantum consciousness. all of this vast cosmic process has culminated in the miracle of your awareness at this very moment. Whether consciousness persists beyond individual lifetimes or finds expression only in the brief flame of biological existence, awareness itself remains the most precious and mysterious gift in all of creation. The fact that matter has organized itself into patterns capable of subjective experience, that the universe has evolved the capacity to know itself through conscious beings, that quantum fields can give rise to the rich inner life of thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, these achievements dwarf any technological marvel humanity has ever created. The ancient questions remain as profound today as they were when humans first became aware of their own mortality. What happens when we die? Is consciousness eternal or temporary? Are we alone in the universe or part of a vast community of awareness that spans space and time? The quantum revolution in consciousness research offers new tools for investigating these perennial mysteries, while reminding us that the deepest truths often lie at the intersection of the most rigorous science and the most profound wonder. As you drift into sleep tonight, or continue through your day, carry with you the remarkable truth that your consciousness, however it operates, wherever it comes from, whatever its ultimate destiny, represents one of the most extraordinary phenomena in the known universe. The quantum fields that might underlie your awareness connect you to the deepest structures of reality itself. Whether we discover that consciousness survives death and reincarnates in new forms, or that awareness represents a brief but magnificent flowering of cosmic complexity, the investigation of these possibilities reveals the profound mystery and beauty at the heart of existence itself. The quantum world continues to surprise us with revelations about the nature of reality, and our understanding of consciousness evolves with each new discovery. Perhaps the greatest adventure of all is consciousness exploring itself, awareness investigating its own nature, mystery dancing eternally with understanding in the cosmic ballet of existence. Rest well in the wonder of your own awareness, that extraordinary gift that makes all experience possible. And remember that whether consciousness is eternal or ephemeral, universal or individual, the fact that you can contemplate these mysteries at all represents something so remarkable that we're only beginning to appreciate its true significance. If these explorations of consciousness have sparked your curiosity about how the strange quantum world of infinite possibilities crystallizes into the solid reality of everyday experience, I invite you to join me next time as we explore Quantum Decoherence Explained, how quantum physics turns into reality, where we'll discover the gentle mechanisms that transform quantum potential into the world we know and love. Until then, sleep peacefully in the mystery and wonder of existence itself, knowing that consciousness, yours and that of every aware being, remains the most precious phenomenon in all of creation. Tonight, we've journeyed through one of the most extraordinary frontiers where science meets the deepest questions of human existence. We've explored how consciousness might operate through quantum processes in neural microtubules, how quantum information conservation could theoretically allow awareness patterns to persist beyond biological death, and how the strange rules of the quantum world might provide the first scientific framework for understanding phenomena that have puzzled humanity for millennia. The research remains speculative, with no scientific consensus on whether consciousness truly survives death or transfers between biological systems. Yet the investigation itself reveals something profound about the nature of awareness and its relationship to the quantum foundations of reality. Whether or not reincarnation occurs as described in ancient wisdom traditions, the possibility that consciousness operates through quantum mechanisms suggests that your awareness might be far more fundamental, interconnected, and mysterious than everyday experience reveals. As you rest tonight, remember that the very fact you can contemplate these mysteries represents something extraordinary. Your consciousness, however it operates, emerges from the same quantum fields that give rise to stars, galaxies, and the fundamental structure of space-time itself. This remains a speculative idea, not proven scientific fact, but it invites us to approach the greatest questions with both rigorous investigation and profound wonder. The quantum world continues to surprise us, and perhaps consciousness exploring itself through the tools of science represents the universe's most remarkable achievement. Whether awareness is eternal or ephemeral, your capacity to wonder about these possibilities makes this moment precious beyond measure.